You want to send the bread?
No.
I got one more coming.
Oh.
Check my spelling.
When you take notes of that, just everybody watching, you take notes. I'm terrible.
Okay.
One time, you take it out after cycle. The city.
Besides
Almost all of
Wow.
Yes, they do. And, well, my question then becomes, will they have to reach out to someone or review there? Regarding recalls, right? If there were a recall, it would only be in the ward, nothing. So it would cut down the number of signatures and the costs.
My head in yours?
Well, I don't think they thought that far.
Okay, we're ready. We're ready? All right, folks, good evening. Thank you very much for joining. My name is Marcus Pochner. I'm a land use consultant to the Uplands team. This is Kaylee Gillespie. Kaylee and I are going to co-present. We have a number of our team members that are here tonight as well, engineers, landscape planners. So any questions you have, we'll probably save those if we can till the end, and then we'll come back. Folks, this is a planning meeting on area B2. We'll talk about that and do that. I do understand all of you B2, many of you that we've known a long, long time. I know there's a lot of roadway infrastructure improvements that are happening right now. So I know it's even a little bit of a challenge to get here to this location tonight. So acknowledging that, I will kind of go through some of the updates on the construction as well. Next slide. This is the team you just met. Kaylee and I, again, will go through it. And then we do have the supporting cast here that really the experts in all of our particular fields that can provide additional information. Next slide. Folks, we're going to go through an Uplands update that we always do. It is our commitment that we will do that. And then we're going to talk about area B2. Kaylee will really make that transition to talk about the specific site plan. As we have in a couple of slides here, this is a reminder, we did a voluntary neighborhood meeting on B2 on this neighborhood adjacent to Observatory Heights. Many of you are from Observatory Heights. We wanted to do that early on because there were some infrastructure issues and to learn from all of you. So this is the neighborhood meeting goes through that process. And we'll go ahead and go back through that. It's okay. We can have you say, I'm doing just fine. Welcome. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Been here, I'm too sick to come.
Well, you're doing famous. Come join us right up here if you'd like.
Okay, I'll sit in front.
I'll just tell you that we're just going through that. We have the agenda and the team here, and then we're going to give an update on overall Uplands, and then we'll come back and talk about B2. Again, we probably delayed a few of you because of kind of some construction. Next slide. Uplands update. It was federal. There we go. And here's the overall Uplands update. I saw a number of you at the quarterly meeting in May. That kind of goes around. The quarterly meeting was created by the city, asked by the city to do, where we give a construction on the overall site. We've kind of condensed those slides. Many of you have seen these slides before, but just to orient ourselves, B2 is this neighborhood, looks like a boomerang right here, that's shaped right here. Many of you from Observatory Heights and a few people here from Shaw Heights as well. B1, the adjacent neighborhood immediately across the street, is already approved. That is the site plan for B1. And as you recall on B1, the roadway decision here was made as part of B1. So the infrastructure improvements here at Bradburn and this connection here, the cul-de-sac, were all part of the B1 application. This shows the rest of the overall site. Parcel B, Parcel A, Parcel C, and D is here. You are seeing now approved neighborhoods, 4 different approved neighborhoods. So A2 and A4 here along Lowell and 84th, the B1 neighborhood, and then C2 was recently approved in April by City Council. This is an affordable housing community by St. Charles Company. That is the site plan. When we show an approved neighborhood that shows a site plan, that's the approved site plan so people can kind of see that. That purple color shows neighborhoods that are in city review process. So if you look at the overall, obviously we're here tonight, but all of these neighborhoods are in various processes, the process of city review. And generally that means a concept review, then neighborhood meeting, planning commission, and city council. So we're working through all of that. Even the D neighborhood, we're now working on that. We were just at city council last night for a concept review of a site plan, or excuse me, a comp plan amendment here. So all of these separate neighborhoods are really going through the process. On top of that, all of you are seeing the infrastructure work that is going on. The water lines, the drainage, the storm sewer. This gentleman lives right by the street where some of the green arrows, the storm drainage improvements are being made. All of this process is going on. That's infrastructure across the whole site that you see in blue, green, and red, and then the neighborhoods that correspond or will be planned around that. Next slide. This shows, we say it every time, these are the 40 acres, 40 plus acres of public land dedicated to the city, right? Public land dedication for them to plan parks and open space, and then view corridors. Just pointing out here, again, B1 across the street, that has PLD. This is view corridor dedicated, and then this is PLD. So I will say on this site, we said it at the neighborhood or the quarterly meeting, all of this land has now been dedicated. It has been dedicated to the city of Westminster and all fees related to this. So park and lieu fees, payment and lieu fees that we have made full payment for all of the open space. So the city of Westminster now has either the land or the funds to start or commence planning on these parks or other related parks. Next slide. This shows a little bit, again, overall the site infrastructure, the bike and pedestrian connectivity. We all know these areas. Many of you know your streets very well. Lowell doesn't have infrastructure on the east side of the street. Most of this does not have sidewalks. It's disconnected from the fabric of the community. So we are showing all the improvements that are planned. You will note here on Parcel B, I'll just kind of call it out. The red here along Lowell, on the east side of Lowell along Bellevue Christian, is a 10-foot concrete multi-use trail. The yellow is an 8-foot sidewalk all around the site. And then we'll talk about, again, through this open space, there will be sidewalks here as well. So that just shows the planned infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure, of course, on top of the roadway infrastructure that's coming into the site. We can come back to that. Sure, you can go ahead, right ahead. Go right ahead, sure.
I'm looking at Plan B.
Yeah.
And the sidewalk, I guess is what you're talking about, on
Yes.
your portion of the north section.
Yes.
Observatories Heights south section.
Yes.
That's going to go from the place all the way to Lowell, that north section.
The north section here, yes. Got it? Is that the one you mean, Ann? Yeah.
The sidewalk.
Okay, yeah.
And that's going to be a 10-foot wide sidewalk.
Yeah, so the red here, this red is 10 foot. That's on the east side of Lowell, adjacent to Bellevue Christian. That's a 10-foot multi-use or mixed-use trail that's there. The yellow, that kind of triangle shape, if you will, that is a 8-foot sidewalk that goes around the perimeter of the site. So this is an 8-foot, Kaylee just checking, right? That's the plans. On both sides of Bradburn would have an 8-foot sidewalk.
Yeah, that's quite a hill.
It is quite a hill, yes. When we go through that process, you're
From
absolutely right.
west to east on that, your north or south border is going to be a
Yes.
sidewalk, an
Yeah.
8-foot sidewalk.
This one, and we'll come back to that, and I'll show you this particularly. I think this line here and where that happens, right, as part of the PLD or in that park. I think we have requirements about where that goes, but that's part of the process we work with the city. So we'll show that in Kaylee's site-specific plan on that. Next slide. Folks, you know B2, this is it. This shows it many months ago, probably before grading and so forth happened on the site, but it shows you this site. Obviously, this is where a lot of the infrastructure and the grading that's happening right now, the traffic at 84th and Lowell, and then down here again on Bradburn and kind of the improvements on this site. Next slide. This shows the notice. I guess we're at 1,700 residents that we notice. A lot of this, again, Observatory Heights and of course, the Shaw Heights neighborhood. So that just gives a perspective of who we've notified for this meeting. Next slide. Just going through this process, I think you all know the process really well. We go through the concept review. So we went to City Council back in December, again, just to get their feedback, gratuitous feedback about what could be used at this site. It doesn't mean they're bound by any of those comments, but we took this concept plan to them. They actually had a lot of comments about it. We wanted, based on that, to have a kind of a voluntary meeting. So in February, we went to all of you. That was the meeting we had previously on this site. And then here in June, we're at the required neighborhood meeting. We will make, we have made the application our second submittal. Before the second submittal, if required, ultimately we go to Planning Commission and then finally to City Council. Next slide. All right, this is the recap. We actually did some surveys and some questions that we asked that people were there. We focused in that February neighborhood meeting on pedestrian connectivity. One of the questions Ann just asked about the sidewalks and how that works, how we engage Bradburn. The parking, how we park this site because of the real significant topography and grade changes on the site. Drainage, right, because of that, how this site lays out, and then street activation. And street activation, we mean is how do we engage the main street, Bradburn here? How do the homes lay out, how the yards lay out, how do the sidewalks lay out to really have some street activation so it just doesn't feel like a wall or a canyon that you see in some areas. We got some comments from you and those have actually been incorporated into what we think the neighborhood plan here is for this. Next slide. This shows it. I just want to show that we're in full compliance. As you all know, the PDP is a preliminary development plan. That's what guides our requirements on the site. So the PDP here goes through the site. It talks about that on this, as you remember, we really went through B1 and B2 together. And here on B2, in coordination with the neighbors, Observatory Heights particularly, we said there could be a max of 26 units. That's it. It's 26 homes on the site. We are doing 26 homes on this site. It is very low density. That's less than 2 dwelling units per acre. We are providing more accessible private parks than is required. But again, just showing that this is that transition. I said it in that neighborhood meeting. I'll say it again here. These will be our largest homes that we have on the site. These are the largest lots that we will have on the site. These lend a little bit more to semi-custom homes because of the layout and views and the topography. It's frankly a very challenging site. All of you know it because of the grade and the topography. But this is definitely a different and more unique neighborhood than we have across the rest of the site. Kaylee's going to take over and talk about the site plan.
Awesome, thanks.
Next slide.
Before we jump into the site plan, we're gonna talk a little bit about the setbacks that are required and what we're providing. So in the burnt orange color here along Bradburn, we have a 32-foot setback requirement. We are meeting that. On the right-hand side along Lowell in the pink color, we're required to have a 32-foot setback. We're actually providing 234 foot setback there. And then in this navy color here that follows on the south side of the site, we're required to have a 30-foot setback. We'll be meeting that on the south side as well. Next slide. The Uplands B2 neighborhood is roughly 13.26 acres, as Marcus mentioned, and these are 26 semi-custom homes to celebrate the expansive views to the northwest and through strategic placement on the existing grading that falls towards Bradburn. Through the PDP, 3.279 acres have been dedicated for the view corridor, and then the 3.76 acres for the public land dedication on the south. The main access into the neighborhood is located off of Bradburn, which terminates into the local Osceola Street that ends in a cul-de-sac and then terminates into what we'll call Lunar. We'll talk a little bit further about Lunar a little bit later on. All homes will have a 2-car garage and they'll have 2 driveway spaces as well. And we'll also be providing some on-street parking on the south side of Osceola.
Just pointing out a few things on the site plan here. Again, Bradburn, you all know we are showing the approved site plan, right? So when we show that image there on the north side, that's B1, that's the grade. There is substantial grade changes as it moves to the northwest there from this site. So again, showing that this was the sidewalk that we talked about here, and then the sidewalk on both sides of Bradburn. So we'll come back and go through some of those details, but just laying out the site.
In the southeast corner is our private or publicly accessible private park. We'll have play equipment, pavilion, and an open lawn, as well as water-wise plant material, similar to other Uplands neighborhoods. Next slide. This is our pedestrian circulation. So this kind of hits on the story of what we're talking about and how pedestrians are going to work through the site. So you've got on this side of the road, you have an attached sidewalk. On the north side of Osceola, you have a detached. We've got our walk along Bradburn, and then we'll have a walk along the Lunar as well that connects and then goes back through the PLD. And then there is also pedestrian connectivity, both bike and walking this way that ends at the cul-de-sac here. And then we'll have, also access up here that's non-ADA accessible roads in that blue color there. Next slide. So here's, on the screen is the Wooner design. A Wooner is a shared public space for pedestrians, bicyclists, and low-speed vehicles. The Wooner also serves as a secondary fire access for these 12 homes that will front onto the Wooner. And then here you can kind of see how that 8-foot works with the driving space.
Kayla, can you just show them the image where this is at? Just so
Yes.
everybody sees.
This is, looking, northeast, through the park. Next slide. Next, we're gonna walk through a couple of sections to kind of understand. We're very well aware of the grade on site, and this, I think, will help kind of tell the story here. Next slide. This, section shown in the right-hand vicinity map cuts across the cul-de-sac towards Bradburn. As you can see, the low point is along Bradburn. And then the high point comes up towards 82nd. Next slide. And here's a bigger cut section that actually goes through in B1 through these homes here and goes through all of B2. So here's our tuck under homes that front onto Bradburn. And then we have our 80-foot Bradburn right of way. We have our street section and our 32-foot setback. Then we have our tuck under homes that also serve as a walkout. And then this is our internal road, Osceola. And then these are the southern makeup homes here that front onto the Wooner.
So just showing this folks the garage level on the front there that Kaylee can point to, that's a elevation 5490, right? And then the garage elevation off the Wooner here at the top is at 5550. That's 60 feet of grade change across that. So when we talk about building into the hill, and when we ask the question to the neighborhood meeting, this is what it was about, right? How do we adjust to that grade and how do we build into that? And that's why we have basically a terrace development that allows us to have both pedestrian connections and vehicular access to the site as well.
Next slide.
Yeah, go right ahead, sure.
The Wooner is supposed to be used in day-to-day use as well. It's not just for emergency vehicles.
It's for, so go back to that, sorry. 3 more slides back, sorry. I think the most helpful is this here. So what happens is there will be bollards that stop cars so that day-to-day cars cannot drive down through this cul-de-sac. That's for fire access only from here to here. This area here is for the use of those 12 homes.
Some of our neighbors are here, right, that live right here. We'd restrict access here with bollards, right? So just showing that again, but to have that access for emergency vehicles, it would be there to allow that connection. Kaylee, these do enter the garages though, so if I live in this lot, I can pull here and pull into my garage. That's a shared access route.
It's the width for one vehicle, I guess.
Question was, Eric, is it the width of one vehicle or do you how do you look at the width of the entire kind of infrastructure, if you will, that's built there?
20 foot wide, so it, side to side, you'd be able to have two-way traffic.
20-foot two-way traffic, it could accommodate. You try to keep it narrow, not to have, two-way, but obviously it would accommodate that.
You can jump back. Thanks, Kevin. All right. Next, we're gonna walk through the architectural enhancements for the semi-custom home neighborhood. Next slide. Due to the unique character of the neighborhood, homes will provide architectural features such as projections or recesses to provide visual interest to the facades, or provide a broken deck or balcony configuration as shown here on these photos. Next slide. A minimum of 2 of the following enhancements between this slide and the next slide will be required on all homes. The first one is the recessed garages shown on the left, and then upgraded garage door opportunities and window configurations on the right. Next slide. Or projected living spaces of the upper level indoor or outdoor living areas shown on the left, and stepped exterior elements on the right that will accommodate grade. Next slide. regulations. These have always been anticipated within Uplands in order to comply with the vision established in the PDP and to provide the much needed housing. Next slide. We'll be asking for very similar exceptions to other neighborhoods that are approved. The first one, though, is a detached sidewalk. That would be on the south side of Osceola. And then we would request that to be attached in a landscape area on lot adjacent to the street. Next slide. Similarly to the prior slide, to the approved Uplands neighborhoods, we'll be requesting exceptions to the front, side, and rear setbacks, as well as some architectural elements, the windows and the pitched roofs.
So folks, I'll just go through this. You can see, we always put the quarterly meetings, so these are the next two quarterly meetings, I guess in August and November, when those are gonna be held. We have those on the website. But we just wanted to come back, I think, again, very different. We'll take your questions now and provide any answers we can. A very different neighborhood scenario. Really, we don't ever talk about semi-custom homes. We'll never have other semi-custom homes. We don't think on any other lots. A lot of this has been decided as far as the infrastructure, again, in the B1 site plan and some of the global planning that was done for infrastructure. But again, this is our feedback. We'd love to hear your thoughts and some of those. The one thing I'll show, I think last time there was a comment about their longer, narrower lots, right? And Jacob, if you don't mind just going back to maybe one slide or two, this is just shown as the entire lot. That's not necessarily the outline of the house, right? So I just want to point that out. When people see that, they think of all kinds of different shapes of what that looks like. That's the lot size. They are longer and narrower, and that leads to some of the variation in the standards. Again, that's absorbing the terrace-like approach of the homes we have on this lot. Paul Brady's here, who's our architect and has designed or will help design a lot of the semi-customs on this site. By the way, that usually means we would work with individual builders, probably not a single builder, right? I may buy this if I'm a custom builder and this lot, right? So there may be 10 or 12 different builders here that would buy a lot and then sell the home. So different than certainly other neighborhoods.
How many square feet is it?
Sure. How many square feet, Paul, are we thinking that you would see kind of across the board, maybe, if you don't mind, on these sites?
The lot or the home itself?
A lot.
4,500.
House?
House, square foot, Paul, what do you think that comes out at?
I mean, they're probably gonna be 25, 3,000, somewhere in there.
25 to 3,000, some ability for basements or no? Part to be determined yet, right? It's kind of
That's anticipating that level with grade.
all basements because of the garage driving into it.
No.
Yes, sir.
Why aren't you, are you gonna do the same thing there that you did in the big lot over here? Just dig it all up and put them in a stack and mess around and then move it back in? Or is that gonna be the regular grade that you've got now?
Move the dirt out, sir, and then bring it back in. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called over X. That's a normal process for any grading of any development site in Colorado. You call over X. You actually you remove that soil because of the type of soils that we have in Colorado. So that's actually done for the soil typology. And then you bring more structural fill put in. So that's actually consistent across every development in most of Colorado.
Now,
We will do that as well.
Then it doesn't make any sense to me that you're worried about the grade because you can put it back in at any grade you want to.
Well, we're not gonna change the slope in the drain. Eric can address that, but you're right, we could excavate in like the basement area, right? And we bring that back in with structural fill. Actually, the structural fill helps reinforce the slope that's on that site as well. So we're not gonna regrade that site. If we regraded it, took the hill out, flattened this out, one, we'd have more connections here. It wouldn't work on drainage and all the roadway connections. So this is engineered out to meet the view corridor, the open space, and accessible routes on all of the adjacent infrastructure.
Marcus,
Yeah,
what
please.
about drainage?
Yeah, Don, we can go through, talking about drainage. Eric, preliminary drainage, I mean, kind of talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about where you're approaching this. This site is draining probably two different ways, but talk about maybe that. If you don't mind, Eric, do you mind popping up here so they can see it?
Yeah, so the drainage, so there's a ridge that kind of comes right about here. Everything from their tributary to the alley, will be captured and conveyed all the way down into the cul-de-sac. This has got positive drainage that comes all the way down to Bradburn. We're gonna have inlets here. It's gonna be piped and conveyed via open swell. And then we're putting all the infrastructure that we need to capture from B1.
The water's running uphill.
This is all downhill.
We haven't figured that one out yet. No, it's all downhill there. Yeah.
It's going
Talk to the
uphill
former
now,
city
one way or another.
So this all still comes down this way, so it'll be mimicking the same way.
Okay. This is looking north, right? Where's the collection pond?
Right in front of your house.
Collection pond?
Yep, so the water quality and detention pond, actually, so we're putting the infrastructure in B1, and it's up at the northwest corner of B1.
I'm concerned about the drainage to my house.
Affecting it, or just the,
It's gonna
That
drain
drainage.
downhill.
Yeah.
I'm below that.
just so you guys know, that this is these three homes here, right, is the
Right.
question. So talking about that, Eric, maybe just, you understand that, but the separation of the grade maybe from
Yeah,
that
so-
cul-de-sac.
Bradburn to your homes, you're still up above Bradburn by 15, 20 feet
Oh, no, not that far. No. About 5 foot.
on Bradburn.
Yeah,
From your driveway or
right-
like?
yeah.
Gotcha.
Driveway, got it.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be conveyance that's all the way down here, and you're still gonna be way above that. Any overtopping of that actually goes into the north side of Bradburn, where we have inlets as well. And then we also have a drainage channel conveying everything to the north to the same pond.
We're working through this here, but we have, and I think we've talked about, this is probably a full landscaping track. Is that kind of what we're looking at now, right? With
Yeah, correct.
full landscaping in that area. So we had looked at kind of some different development scenarios, roadway connections. Could you make the grade there? You can't, right? Sidewalks or that. So we'll do that. Yeah, sure. So we can do that. So again, very heavily landscaped. Bonnie just asked there to show that, cross section. So this shows a little bit of that.
You can see just the elevation of what that is from left.
So this is the 14% grade here, right? So Eric, this is right to, the two houses here.
Yep.
That's to A, that shows that, and there, that's the exact cross section of that. I don't know if we have the exact number of square or footage there, but it's a 14% grade from there to there. So we're able to absorb and drain off of what would be your house here.
Right. So with that, taking the soil out and refilling it, you're not gonna anticipate any shifting in ground?
Yeah, well, you talk about that, the over-X, right? Taking the ground out and then bringing it back in, right? And kind of going through that. Do we shift that? How do you monitor any slippage, soil movement, any of those type of things?
So we still got the constraints of the whole perimeter of the site, so therefore we can't just go in and grade it, take it all the way down. We'd still need to put back walls if we were to flatten that all out. Obviously, walls is not what we want, just to.
I don't mean
Line.
flattening it out, I mean, you got a grade there.
Yep, so just for the parameters of what it is, then inside, we've got heavy clays here in Colorado, therefore we gotta break it up. When clay gets wet, it swells, push that up on your foundation, it cracks. It's actually the biggest concern that we actually have here in Colorado is our homeowners insurance of cracked foundations. Therefore, to remedy that, we go in over X, is over dig underneath the foundation, usually 10 feet below the foundation, take it out, mix it up so that the clays are not grouped together. Now they're mixed in with the fines, and then you put it back in 1 foot increments in moisture conditions such that you get the good foundation, not to have consolidated pockets of clay that would push up against your house when they get wet.
Well, I'm wondering if it being a slope like that.
Yeah.
Water would run down and
So across the whole site, right? And you do over-X across the whole site all at once, or do you do it lot by lot as you kind of dig those out?
The whole area at once.
So folks, I mean, listen, I'll just go, think of Jeffco, anything to the west of us. This is a very common scenario of this type of slope, this type of drain, and how we construct homes and that. You all are on to something that What is more unique here is the grade here and the lots, and that's why we're addressing them with design solutions and semi-custom homes, right? This calls for that. The views are pretty remarkable, as you all well know, across that site as well. So we're really looking for, I think, superior architecture and unique design to really address that as well and dig in and build into those sites. But sir, that's a pretty common technique that we go through and monitor as we go through the engineering and grading process.
How much noise are we putting up with and how long?
Yeah, I understand. I mean, there is no doubt that there's some grading and noise associated with that. There's no question. Have any idea, Eric, just like a rough estimate, I'm not holding you to this, but over X grading on the site, on this site, any estimate of what that means on that site? Couple months timeline for the grading on that site. And then the individual home construction that we would go through. Again, we didn't talk about it, but I'll follow on. This is the ODP, right? That's sort of the process we're going through for this neighborhood. We go through permits if it's approved as it goes through there. Best case scenario, do we have any timelines associated with, you know, when this could move forward? Probably fall of this year, Kaylee, is when we're anticipating that we go through the formal process.
So planning commission,
Yeah.
city council, probably winter.
Winter, yeah. So winter just for approval of the ODP, then going through, getting building permits and all of that
What
process.
about B1? You haven't started on that yet.
B1 will commence in the next few weeks, is what we were told. The grading schedule will start in the next 2 to 3 weeks on that side. So again, B1 focuses right across here. So the grading, again, this is an approved site plan going through that. So we were told the new construction schedule on that is about 3 weeks away. Yes,
Going back to the drainage,
sure.
you were talking about it's going to be on a landscape swell and now when it goes across Bradburn and goes wherever it's gonna go, up to where you can't get in Shaw Heights up there. Is that above ground or is that gonna be piped?
Piped, and then there's also above ground. So there's a above ground channel plus a pipe.
Pipes here, Eric, just to be clear from this landscape here, under, right, where does that go? Yeah.
Piped right here, right to here, and then from here it becomes a dual system of a channel above and a pipe below.
Channel here, and then there's another pond, is that correct here?
Just the only one.
The only pond is on the northwest portion of the one. John?
Let him go.
Yeah, and
When we all in Observatory Heights had to deal with the 2 new tanks.
Yeah.
And we were told that the drainage from the tanks in the property would go to the northwest, right?
Yeah.
Almost to where,
like,
no, you don't have it, to the northwest.
there's a drainage pond, right?
There's supposed to be
Yeah.
a drainage pond out there.
Okay.
Now, we kind of asked at that time, the Public Works Director, Max, or Water Director, Max, how could the water run uphill, just as Don had asked earlier?
Sure.
And we were told, no, it'll all run downhill. Well, we live south of those tanks,
Sure.
and I cannot tell you how many times we deal with water that's supposed to go northwest, running down southeast.
Because the swells don't swell in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, so I'm not questioning any of that. You all know we want this to drain just as appropriately as you all want this to drain. I think, it doesn't maybe give you the reassurance that you want, but we will go through that whole process as they have our drawings and all of the drainage approved. And those are in the submittals now, right? I mean, that's the process that we're going. Your comments, like that's why we have these neighborhood meetings. Jacob is here hearing those comments. We come back, ask that question at city council, right, and how that gets addressed. So, and I know we're trying to engineer it correctly, right? So it all flows the right way. Again, we've kind of walked through our solutions and this connection here, but I understand your point for sure. So, yeah, John and then Victor. Yeah.
Can we look at 19 real quick?
Sure. Slide 19. Yeah.
Is there actually 3 rows of houses or is
This B1s.
That's in
So, Bradburn's,
Yeah.
okay, I'm
So
sorry.
sorry, this is Bradburn right here.
Okay.
This is B1 on the north side of the road. So it shows this house here, John, and here, 2 rows of
Okay,
homes.
I understand, it was hard to tell.
Yeah.
All right, one other quick question.
Sure.
Are there gonna be any surprised, unannounced road closures, that the neighbors can expect? Like we had on Lowell that wasn't announced, even at the community meeting?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna just defer on that. Eric, surprise unannounced, I think we'll have a construction schedule, right?
I understand that, Marcus, but that, we were in a meeting 3 days before that,
Yes,
and
sir.
you people couldn't tell the neighbors
Yeah.
that Lowell was gonna be closed off.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, these people need to know if, for some reason, Bradburn's gonna be closed, the place can't be just wake up one morning and it's closed.
It's completely fair comment, John. There's no disagreement from me. I think as we try to know that, we're trying to get better about, are we able to say when that schedule is, put that schedule out there. I think it changes, as you know, in construction, but I understand your point. And this neighborhood, I made the comment about people getting to the meeting tonight with that closure that you're talking about. So, John, it's a very fair comment. We gotta do what we can. Yes, here, and then I'll come over there.
Can you tell me what you mean by a semi-custom home?
Sure. Yeah,
I mean, we have custom
Yeah.
homes in our subdivision. I don't know what a semi-custom home is.
Sure, absolutely. Paul, this is Paul Brady, our architect. Paul, do you mind coming up here and just answering what a semi-custom, when I say semi-custom, what that means?
Yeah. As I understand, the intent is to do the lots and sell them off likely to a builder. That builder may or may not have a homeowner for that property yet. So semi-custom, I believe, leaves it open that that builder can do it as a spec home without a user and then sell it. Or they can build it custom to the user if they have that person at the time of design.
So the builder can buy the lot and build this out, have a custom house put on it?
They would design it themselves. Yes, that happens often. I think if we just, Lowell,
You guys own the lot.
right, we own the lot, and that's why we were indicating, Paul said, there may be multiple builders here, right? So our company buys this, Hockner Design, and then we design that house as either a spec home or for a customer, a client who's gonna buy that. So that's a custom or semi-custom. Yeah. Yep, just style home, John, and then, I'm sorry, over here first, yeah.
One more question on
Sure.
drainage.
Yeah.
To the north of the water tanks, I know there's supposed to be this dip there that collect water, right?
Yeah,
Drain-
a swale, yeah.
Right, so why is it not gonna drain right into your houses,
It did.
across your
Yeah,
The
sidewalk?
outfall of this pond we're capturing via pipe and then
Okay,
conveying it.
And again, just, I know, and I'm not arguing with anybody at all, but just showing this cross section here, right? I think the pond is here, obviously it's lower because it's a pond basin, right? But this is a 50-foot grade change across here, so there's grade that takes
well,
that.
I'm sure there's grade, but why isn't that water gonna go across your sidewalk into the houses
I
that are,
understand, because it's captured in
it
that.
is captured?
Yeah, it's
Capture
captured.
and pipe.
It's captured in that and piped and then taken out of that.
Okay.
So it doesn't overflow that. Here and then back, yeah.
Will there be, I assume there's gonna be an HOA of some sort for this area that
Yeah.
have design guidelines they have to follow?
That is correct. They would have design guidelines, particularly as was noted about the semi-custom design and some of these architectural features. When we put in an ODP, this submittal, we still have to identify like design characteristics that would go along with that. And so we'd enforce that.
Yeah, the design guidelines are 1 or 2 pages in the ODP. And it's a mix of like the slides and those design principles we showed on the page, plus the Westminster standards, kind of all blended together to be that extra step.
How's that enforced?
Those are written as part of the ODP, and so then at the time of building permit for any individual home, that'll go to the city, and the city will review those individual home designs against that recorded ODP.
Again, just that extra layer of scrutiny because these will have that semi-custom design. Yeah, here and then in, sorry.
The bollards, do they like go
Yeah.
down by electronic or something with the?
Bollards back here. Yeah, how does that work to allow that access?
They're static bollards or just like?
Static bollards on both sides with a chain in between with a box lock.
So like a paramedic or somebody would remove it to get it
Just undo the chain, drive over it. When they're done, they just pick it up.
Yeah, design city standards in coordination with them. Yeah,
Fires mandated.
fires and
I'm speaking for the people who are currently on 82nd.
Yeah.
You're going to, according to one of those little things that you have up there, you're going to landscape in front of them. Are they going to have any say in the landscape? When
Yeah.
you're looking at their views right now,
sure.
they can see the flat irons, they can see the whole thing. Are you going to plant trees where?
Can, please, yeah, Jacob, yeah.
So hi, I'm Jacob Kaza. I'm the senior planner for the city. I coordinate all the uplands development reviews. So briefly, like what they've shown you with the development review process, that's typically what I go over, where they're at in the development process. They've shown that accurately here. So the intent of the neighborhood meeting is also for you to provide feedback and input about what you would like to see in this development. So for instance, if you're the homeowner on this cul-de-sac here and you want 0 trees out there, that's the comment we'd like to hear from you. I want 0 trees out there, or I want 100 trees in front of there, something like that. We'd also like to hear comments about what architecture would you not like to see present on the side, what types of things. Those are the types of feedback that we'd like to hear, because there's already been approvals given for the density or the lot and the uses for the property and for the access point. So those things have already been approved by city council. So at this point for this development, the input from the community can really be on the site plan, the architecture, the landscaping, and those items. So that's what's really helpful to hear from the community.
Some of our houses are gonna be landscaped.
Yeah. So again, 82nd here, cul-de-sac, just answering this landscape track here. We are showing this as landscaping, right, all across that, and the connection to the storm drainage there. So we're talking about that. What is the landscape kind of material right now? What is the thought that we're looking at?
Yeah, for the tracker, can you grab this?
Right here.
Yeah, so right now we have a mix of trees in this area, so that
Yeah,
Taller
below
heights.
that, where you got a local street, where you see that?
here,
See the word local street?
we are not
We're not
touching
touching that
anything.
yet. That's your homes.
We will only touch, this is our property line right
All
here.
right, okay.
North side.
Yeah, right away, cul-de-sac, we don't write all of that, then we're all of this. You see the trees, this is the sidewalk then on Bradburn, so it shows
City's
that.
gonna maintain
Yes.
The right of way
Right of
or this.
all of that.
This will
All
be
those trees.
maintained by the HOA.
The city will maintain that.
HOA, we will, this is our HOA that will maintain all of
So I
these
gotta
trees.
pay for it through an HOA.
No, sir, we're, our HOA for just our new homes, we are responsible for it. You don't have to pay a thing or be part of that HOA, you're not part of that. This is our HOA if you follow the property line. City, we were saying here, yes, public right of way, right, in Bradburn, then you probably get the best of both worlds. Our HOA, these 26 homes gets to pay for that landscaping there and maintain it. So it'll be maintained.
So
So-
both,
But my question was, are you going to take the volts and the muslins into consideration about the height of trees, the width of trees?
Yeah, and that's
to
just what
take away
Jacob
their
said. Give us that feedback. We're showing 6, 8 trees there on that basin. Again, a grade change of at least 14 feet from the top of the roundabout down to Bradburn there. So looking at that, if you want lower lying trees, please provide that. These are street trees here along Bradburn, but we'd love to have any of that feedback that you see about that. And I think it's a terrific, we're happy to share just our landscaping plan. I certainly emailed with Don. I'll share kind of what we have in there, if that's okay, if we can isolate that landscaping plan to share that. That'd be great. Yes?
It seems to me that you shouldn't put trees in there because you're gonna completely block their view. So if you have low shrubs or something like that, but 14-foot trees, well, you might as well you're gonna take away entirely the view.
Yeah.
You know,
Perfect. It's a great comment, and I think that's the feedback we're looking at. Again, that's from street level, right, kind of down to grade. There's a lot of grade here. I know you
I
know
know
that
that.
well. But you're right, if that is suggested to have lower or no trees, maybe just shrubs and landscape native
you
plant
can have
palette,
great
that's terrific.
landscaping that's
Yeah.
not 15 feet tall.
Terrific, agreed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we hear you. We're not pushing back on that at all.
Are any trees needed there for correct drainage of that area?
No. It is not stabilize or provide anything like that at all. John in the back end here.
Quick question, is this part of the metro district?
This is part of the Metro District, yes, that's part of the overall infrastructure and improvements, but this is a sub HOA, completely different. This is
I know HOA, but that metro district that the city approved at 0.50, is that also applied here?
Yes, it does. Both are true, yes.
I'm a little bit confused. Where's the front of those houses?
Sure. So we're showing these asterisks, if you will, those signs, that's the garage entrance. So one thing that we've really worked hard on, and why you saw that on the architecture, we love your comments, is frankly, I think these kind of have to engage both sides, right? It has this where we talked about street engagement on Bradburn, but just to show you, that is the driveway location, right? So then architecturally, how do we address Bradburn? That's what we've been going through and showing them some of the design standards. So I think you could kind of talk about, they have to have both kind of two fronts, if you will, effectively to address the street and the internal roadway.
Well, I'm just looking at their view. If their entrance to their house is up the hill, they've got no view.
No, that's not true at all. Yeah.
I think it's expected that the door will be on the uphill side near the garage door. The architectural standards are trying to create entry-like features on the other side. And as you enter, it's a walkout. And so imagine your great room and your deck is looking at the view.
Jake, you're gonna go to that section.
Yeah, if you can show that section again. I understand, it's a unique home design because of these terraces, but where we show that, again, here, so when you're seeing the alley or the garage entrance, that's actually at the second level of the home, right? So you're coming in here, yes, there's the front door, a door that enters there, but we're saying the architectural features, the deck, the backyard, all of those things are looking west and north, right, for the views on Bradburn. So we're talking about those solutions there. And again, different here, right, the same thing, Paul, you're anticipating that really the garage is kind of on level 2, if you will, right, just looking at 1, 2, 3 there, and that's how you're able to have the front looking north and northwest.
See how it steps down with the view, each house looking over the other house.
There's some flexibility for the lots, as we make the bend, but all those statements.
Is there an anticipated price range for these homes?
Yeah, anticipated price range, we don't have that yet. We're not, we don't know what that will be. I'll say it again, and I'm sheepish about saying it, but these will be the most expensive homes that we have on Uplands because they're semi-custom. Because of the design solution, these are also, they're expensive to build, right? This grade, this solution, what Paul is talking about, the way you have to construct this, these are expensive sites, so semi-custom denotes the highest prices on the site. No
How
question.
about the B1 that's north of the,
Yeah,
are they gonna be less expensive?
they'll be less than this. B1 will be for sure. I think we're able to have, and this is a single builder that's there in B1. So they do that again. This is such varied with the topography, frankly, the views across that. So certainly more expensive than the B1.
I mean, it's not designated for low-end houses.
No, it's not.
It's
No, it's a complete neighborhood. We have affordable housing. As you know, this is an affordable housing building that exists there today, the apartments. But no, this is, these are both market rate. This will exceed that certainly with a semi-custom product.
The fact that these lots are 25 feet long, 25 feet wide, and it's not as wide as this room. That's the lot itself,
They're 50 feet wide, 50 feet wide.
50 feet.
40, sorry, I heard it wrong. 40 feet wide, so we can correct that. Are they all the same width
They're not,
across that? They're varied.
there are some
layout.
varying widths in there.
So they're 40 feet wide and then depth.
Yeah.
If a builder or a person who's going to have
Sure.
a custom or semi-custom house wanted to buy 2 lots,
Would you be able to build just a larger home, right? These would be platted for individual lots. So you'd probably have to go through, Jacob, I'll defer to you. I think you'd have to go back through and re-plat that. I don't think you'd be able to.
Yeah, so we have allowed in instances where people have proposed, Right. So question about can you combine lots? So in other custom home developments like this, we have had people propose buying 2 lots and combining them, or buying 3 lots and then making 2. And we have seen that before. It is allowable under the regulations that they have proposed now. They would have to come and process another application with the city to do that. But it could be done. Of course, they'd have to purchase the 2 lots or the 3 lots from the developer.
well, I'm thinking that none of us have a lot that's 40 feet wide.
These are very narrow lots, yeah.
Yeah.
They almost look like trailer park lots.
They will not have those associated prices. That is for certain, yes.
How wide is a typical home?
In what neighborhood or context?
Like in this, how wide would a home like this be in these type of lots?
How wide would the home be if your
How far
lot
away
is,
would these
let's
houses
say
be
it's
away from
40
each
foot,
other?
what's a typical home?
Or the
5-foot setbacks.
Yeah, they're intended to be 30 feet wide. 10 feet apart from each other.
Okay. I have a specific question about the view of this area.
Sure.
Jacob, I came specifically because me and my family regularly walk up to this area.
Sure.
And enjoy this beautiful free view.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to hear that now these $1 million or multi-million-dollar homes are gonna take this beautiful view away from us that live in the neighborhood currently and don't own a property with the ability to have such an amazing view.
Sure.
So please tell me, what view will I be able to
Yeah.
not expect to see? How much are you taking away from me? That's what I want to know.
I want to thank you. I understand your comment. We actually heard that from the very first meeting we had on Uplands was actually with Observatory Heights. And they talked about this view here where the grove of trees are, the old orchard here, and then this PLD, the parkland across this site. So these two have been dedicated and given to the city. So there's PLD of almost 4 acres here.
Which doesn't have a view, correct?
It does have a view. It
It does?
absolutely has a view. This is actually
The
preserving
houses
the
won't be
view.
blocking that view? the
And
whole
we've
time?
actually, and we're happy to show you, if you sign up, you put a little asterisk by your sign in, we'll send you the views that we showed across this site because of the topography when we proposed these 26 homes. So we actually have very specific views and where that impacts. You see a few of the roof lines, but we can talk about that. And then
how
this
about
is actually,
street trees, I mean, those could be 50 feet tall. That's a 50-foot tall trees on Bradburn.
I think that's a long ways away from a 50-foot tree.
Of
And
course,
this
but
view
even those people
corridor.
still need to have a view, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I understand, and the view corridor here, this triangle is different than PLD. This is forever view corridor, to really preserve an existing kind of historic, as you called it, view corridor. There's a few others on Uplands as well, where it's denoted, this is a significant view, and we have protected forever that view. So this has been dedicated. So these two triangles are in rectangle and a triangle are in direct relationship to what you are saying.
So only or up towards Boulder?
Yeah.
Are we still seeing immediately to the west
Sure.
from the PLD?
Jacob's coming up to answer this, and then mirrored over here.
I'd like to cover what the city has required the developer
Yeah.
to do. So we do not, the city of Westminster, regulate views from private property. We don't protect views from private property or control that.
Yeah.
What we do control is views from certain places on public property through our comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Our comprehensive plan, when they initially processed their application, which would have been the 2013 version or the updated 2013 version, had a generic arrow from about here pointed northwest. It didn't have any other arrows or any other guidance on what other views we should protect on this property. So as a part of their PDP process, we required them to protect the view corridor through here. I apologize, I don't have it loaded right now, but if you stick around, I can show you their view study to show what is being protected and what's not. If we have time after the end of this, I'll go ahead and put it up on the screen. We can all look at it. So this has already been dedicated. The city is the owner of this land. The city is the owner of this land. We did require that this is always going to be protected. This was never intended to be part of a view corridor. This is intended to be either an area for us to expand public works facilities if needed, or possibly for open space. There's a deficit of open space in the southern part of the city. On the site itself, we have already made this comment. We want to see these trees all be planted with trees that are not as tall. So that way, as you proceed down Lowell, whether you're walking, bicycling, or driving, these end up not blocking the view.
And the trees that are currently there, all the ashes and the honey locusts, which will get very tall, are those gonna stay?
So we're not entirely sure that they're going to get that much taller. They're not irrigated right now. They're part of probably an original tree farm from the church back in the day. And we're not planning on irrigating them either in the future. And even if we did, they may end up waning and dying if they don't reseed themselves. And so the intent there is that we leave the trees alone as they are.
Okay, so that's like just gonna stay open field, not really a walkable space?
The view corridor itself is probably gonna stay an open field and probably not very walkable. We've kind of been floating some ideas for how we interact with the space. We did require an 8-foot regional trail to connect generally along the alignment of what would be 82nd Avenue here. And so this is intended to always be a publicly accessible. And so they have a connection here. And what you're not seeing right here is this is a sidewalk. And then there will be an emergency vehicle connection. We've got it engineered, thanks to Eric, where this will actually be accessible for fire trucks and police vehicles and such through there. So it's intended, this will be a public accessible route through here permanently, and then kind of connect across. And then what we've kind of floated some concepts for maybe a viewing area or like a pullover, some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, the history of this road is that people drive up there and that's where you go watch the sunset. I mean, everyone's been doing that forever. And if we don't anticipate that people will still want to do that, then there's gonna be a problem, right?
Question along that same lines, seeing how you're a city representative, when will the fencing and the no trespassing signs be taken down if the city owns it? So that people are free to walk out there to view the sunsets or view the northern. From 82nd, to the tree grove, there's fencing and no trespassing signs. On Turnpike Draw or on Bradburn, again, no trespassing signs. If this is city property, we deserve to be able to use it.
Yeah, so I don't have a specific timeline for when we would take the fences down. Typically, we'll oftentimes put that burden onto the developer just to do it since they already have construction crews on site. The alternative would
If
be
it's city
when-
property,
when the city-
if it was given to the city, how can the contractor be responsible for it?
So we often ask the developer to install public improvements or to make improvements to public property. One of them, for instance, would be this public trail that's going across the
We're
field.
not talking about that. We're talking about the fencing on Lowell
Yeah.
Boulevard.
I
We're
can,
talking about the no
through our
trespassing
PUD
signs.
process, I can require them to remove it. The alternative would be city staff would remove it during, or have a contractor we hire to remove it. So that would be the thing. I don't have a specific timeline on it. It's not our immediate priority to remove that fencing.
I have a question
Yeah,
regarding
sure.
that trail that's going from Bradburn, or from one little place actually, all the way to Lowell. Who is going to maintain that? And first of all, if I owned one of those houses, I would not want strangers walking by and looking in my bedroom.
Yeah, I understand that, and this comment's been made about these homes' relationship to this. As Jacob just said, the idea, the context here is really trying to make this connection as if 82nd went all the way around, or all the way across, I should say.
Well,
So
it
from
doesn't now.
Lowell-
Why couldn't the people who are walking, et cetera?
So I think it's really to
That's-
go, yeah, and this is a requirement that was in our PDP, so I just want to be sure, this is a requirement that we build this trail, this sidewalk system through here. So that's happening.
So
I
if we
guess,
object to that, we go to the city.
yeah, and it's in the PDP. I mean, that was a requirement that was already, so yes, and I think that's absolutely right. The other thing I just note is, this is a park that we're having here. So I think really accessibility to this view, all of these things, we think work together and really complement these homes, but I understand your comment about a cut through, I guess, from a pedestrian standpoint.
Sure, so the trail is part of our 2014 Trails Master Plan. And it has been included in our updated transportation and mobility plan. So that's been part of our public documents.
Do other subdivisions have a trail cutting through it so that
Yes.
people can look at their bedrooms?
Yes, a lot of subdivisions have trails cutting through them, not specifically for the purpose of looking in people's.
Well, that's exactly what's gonna happen here.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's that any much different than having a sidewalk in front of your house where people could look into your house from the
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Driveway access, garage here, yes, door, but playground, will never, all of that there.
And one of the conditions that city council placed on the approval of the Uplands development was that all the parks are publicly accessible. So the city is requiring them to provide a public access easement on the park. And so we also want to ensure that people have access to get to these private parks that are publicly accessible.
Is there any public parking in consideration for the fact that people regularly drive up Lowell and try to park there so that they can appreciate the beautiful space that it is?
No, they're all gonna park on Don's cul-de-sac.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
There'll be parallel parking spaces along the south side of Osceola.
So we
And then-
have to go into the residential.
No, and then, as Jacob noted, this, we don't plan this, we the developer, right? We've given this to the city, so the view corridor and public PLD, right? Those go through a separate process. So you mentioned maybe there's a poll, all those things, so those decisions be made. But just importantly, we don't make those planning decisions.
Yeah.
Those are things that, again, we're protecting the comp
Yeah.
plan, so they'll go through that.
So just to answer that question about that, so pretty soon the city is gonna start our Uplands Park planning process. Earlier, we kind of showed us, or they had shown a slide of all the land that they've provided to the city as public land dedication. And so we are gonna launch on a public process of how to plan it. We've heard that comment before about having a pull off or having a little bit of parking for people who want to do that. And I believe it right now, and maybe you remember better, Eric, we don't have parking along Lowell because it's a collector on this stretch. Yeah.
We do have it on Bradburn though as well,
Yeah.
so both sides, so.
Both sides of Bradburn have parking on them, and then the cul-de-sac, this cul-de-sac is a public road where anybody can park.
So both sides of Bradburn, that's, gosh, 100 vehicles that can park there? How many cars do you think we can park in both sides of Bradburn?
That's probably.
The public.
Probably not that many, but I would just say if that's 13 homes, just for scale purposes, right, Eric? If
Okay.
you look at that, right, 35 to 40 across that, probably, yeah. Listen, folks, we're gonna keep taking questions for a few minutes. It's 6:30. I have to go to an engagement. I'm so sorry, but the whole team is staying here, so don't think I'm walking out angry, but John, go right ahead, yeah.
Will it be a requirement that all of the infrastructure, sidewalks, street, gas, water, all be in place prior to any actual construction starting on homes?
Well, is that okay, John, to have Jacob answer that, just the sequence of how that happens? And we'll go through that, yeah.
So, we require the infrastructure necessary to serve the homes to be in place. In this instance, because of the way that this is developed, essentially you'd have to have the entire road built. This is actually proposed as a water line loop that comes around through here, so they would have to have the loop put into, because that's how they get fire access in their sewer. And so they'd have sewer, so I think everything would essentially be in. The city doesn't control the gas or electric utility. That, I'm not sure if the electric utility, for instance, would hold off on installing a facility down here. I've never heard of them doing that and only doing one row. But generally, yes, that is a requirement.
Will Bradburn remain a public street?
Yes, Bradburn will remain a public street.
How long is Bradburn going to be closed, for the next 2 years?
I'm unsure of the timing on that.
Okay, and that same thing, I got a question, have you considered how traffic's gonna enter and exit that? Or other traffic that's going over Bradburn?
Yeah, we have to do a full traffic impact analysis, and that's provided with our city requirements submittals.
It looks to me like they may need a traffic light at Lowell and Bradburn, and then around the corner there at, let's see, what did you say? Yeah, the intersection that comes off of 80th.
Oakwood.
Well, you go up the hill to 80th there, and then you can go down, whatever that street is.
Currently, there's not a street light warranted.
Well, I mean, both places. Out of traffic and,
With the master PDP and the PDP that the density, and so that we knew the number of households that would be roughly on each parcel. And so that data was put into that traffic study and used to compute if it warranted a signal or not. And based on that data, it didn't
well,
warrant a
those
signal.
are two dangerous intersections.
Low,
I
narrow.
go over it all the time, because I live in traffic there.
Yes,
I don't like taking it all.
Is that right?
I think that study is part of public record.
It is
It
public
is.
record.
And the roadways will be improved as well, so the current status of the roadways, intersections, all that get improved even with the improvements of roadways.
2 lanes with plans.
There's also a sidewalk that's going along Lowell to connect this triangle, right?
Mhm.
That'll be, but I assume that's.
There's two, actually, there's.
But the city decide how it'll go in or whatever they decide you're gonna do pull offs or not, all that kind of.
Correct.
How many,
On the east side, how far does the sidewalk come up?
how many residential units in the B section, sorry, B1?
B1 and B2?
Yeah,
Sidewalk.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
Eric, do you know the length of the sidewalk? On the west or east side, John?
East side?
That's it.
That's on the east.
It's at least the 82nd. Yeah, so the sidewalk on the east of Lowell goes down to 81st.
Do they all have parking?
Do you mind going to the connectivity plan, Jason? Sure.
Because so that one has a little bit of parking.
I think it's like one of the first 5 or 10.
Two parking per.
That area.
Keep going.
Are you thinking the master
Yeah, the
PDP one?
master one, because it shows both sides of that road. There you go. So this is from that ODP PDP document, and these are the commitments for the sidewalk lengths, so it's to the southern edge of parcel B2.
So 82nd is where that stops?
South of 82nd, so about
Yeah,
81st
this
and a half.
is 82nd, right? So south, it's in line with the water towers, the southern boundary.
And who's gonna maintain that? As far as snow removal and?
All those
weeds and
sidewalks are
such?
public right of way.
Excuse me?
They're all public right of ways, so that's all the city.
The city will maintain the sidewalks that are adjacent to the public land dedication.
Yeah, so parallel to the road, that's public. Once you go through the parcel, then that's where it becomes.
Is Pillar of Fire gonna be responsible for the sidewalk on their side? Because I can guarantee you they won't do it.
No, both of those are within the right of way.
They are responsible for it. It is, per city ordinance, you're responsible to shovel the sidewalk in front of your property.
But that's in
Unless it's
Adams County, it's not in, it's unincorporated Adams County. Philip Fire's property is now not in the city.
South of 82nd, it is in the city. North of 82nd, it is not in the city.
And so when it's adjacent to open space and there's not a resident, then that's.
Yeah. Typically the city will take over.
Does that apply to on 84th from Lowell to Federal? As far as north and south? South side of 84th, where you've got the 8-foot sidewalk? Who's gonna maintain that? Is that again, Pillar of Fire?
Per our ordinance, this pillar of fire would be responsible to do it. The portion west of Irving Street, in between Lowell and Irving, is not in the city limits. The portion to the east is in the city limits.
Can you go to the Wolfner market? I have a question about it. Just mainly, is it, it's separate, different types of surfaces? Like, is this asphalt, the black part, or is it like a rubber, kind of like a running track, or is it all?
We're working on the details of that at this time. We're hoping for maybe, just a colored concrete, or, we're working with the city staff on what will be allowed and what's not gonna be allowed there.
This is still a conceptual model. Right?
Yes.
I like the idea of different colors, kind of insinuating this is for bikes and stuff like that, but obviously with heat times when two cars have to pass each other, they either, from garages or.
What amenities are included at this site?
So we'll have, a playground here, we've got a pavilion, and we have an open lawn happening in this neighborhood.
And they have access to the master amenities.
Yep.
I thought in one meeting that I went to, that parking along Bradburn was gonna be on one side or the other. You're saying there's gonna be parking on both sides of Bradburn?
Yeah.
Correct, yeah, that's it.
With a bike lane additionally? How wide is Bradburn gonna be?
Bike lane added to it.
There is or isn't a bike lane?
So.
Yeah, that's part of the ODP. I don't know if we have the illustrations tonight.
No, bikes are going right behind those houses and wait for people to get them.
And those improvements are on B1 approved.
Okay.
So the Bradburn Drive Street section is 2 travel lanes, parking on both sides, and then tree lawn and sidewalk on both sides. There's no separate bike lane. So parking, travel lane, parking.
And then you said tree line and then what?
Tree lawn and sidewalk on either side.
And how big a tree line?
6 feet. Minimum 6 feet.
Any other comments or questions?
One last really quick thing, all the way, also, I'm Priya, I'm the summer intern for the Faulkner Company, Marcus, I was just here, just so you all know who I am. If you have any other questions or you want to get updates on any of this, please fill out our sign-in sheet, because we have it all in a database. We can send you all the notices that way you don't miss out on anything, meetings, please fill those out, that would be quick. That's it.
Thank you all so very much for coming this evening.
Who's in charge of the city streets? I got a big deal on some of my driveway, that they were,
Sarah Berger's.
Did you want to say?
Yes, Sarah Berger is what he said. I want to know who the street is.
Oh, yes, anyone.
It's Sarah Borger. She's the head of the streets, Public Works.
is she here?
I don't think so.
And if you can't get a hold of her, get a hold of Paul Knipple.
Take me a second.
Oh, you're just.
That's all.